Hello everyone, and welcome to Scape. Today, we are sharing a fascinating tale about a young man who was incredibly lazy, yet surprisingly clever. Through his journey, we will discover the secret to how a chronically lazy person can finally find the drive to work hard and defeat their own sluggishness. Make sure to listen until the end, so we can truly understand the profound moral of this story. Once upon a time, in a humble hut on the outskirts of a town, lived a young man named Rayan with his parents. Rayan was notoriously lazy. His daily chore was to help his father in the rice fields, using a pole and a slingshot to scare away the birds. Instead of doing it the normal way, Rayan chose to set up wooden poles at various corners, attach tassels to them, and connect them all with a single long string. His goal was simple: to lie down comfortably in the field and scare the birds with a simple tug without ever having to stand up. His father was deeply concerned about his son's lazy habits, fearing that if he ever fell ill, Rayan wouldn't be able to handle the heavy workload. Sadly, the father's fears were completely justified. During a harsh dry season, the rice fields desperately needed extra care. Suddenly, the father fell severely ill, leaving Rayan with no choice but to manage the fields entirely on his own. Because he was so unaccustomed to hard labor, he simply couldn't cope. The crops they had painstakingly tended to were ruined by the drought. With their savings rapidly depleting to cover daily needs and his father's medical treatments, the family fell into deep despair. The harvest they had relied on was completely gone. That night, Rayan sat alone under the starry sky, feeling utterly useless and deeply disappointed in himself. Farm work shouldn't have been too difficult for a young village man, but because of his chronic laziness, he had ruined his family's only chance of survival. He was lost and didn't know what to do. The following morning, the faint sound of a gathering crowd drew Rayan from his home. He approached and found royal guards making a grand announcement. To celebrate the prince's birthday, a grand competition would be held at the kingdom, and the winner would receive a chest full of gold. Driven by desperate hope, Rayan immediately declared that he would enter the contest. The villagers erupted in laughter. How could a lazy fool like him possibly win against the strongest competitors from all corners of the kingdom? Nevertheless, the guard informed him that the event would begin in 3 days near the royal palace. Because his village was so far away, Rayan had to leave 2 days early. Though his parents doubted his abilities, they gave him their blessing. They weren't expecting him to win. They simply hoped this journey would be the spark that finally taught him the value of hard work. 3 days later, the participants gathered at the edge of a vast lake near the palace. Looking around at the muscular, highly trained competitors, Rayan felt his confidence shatter. How could he possibly beat them in a test of physical strength? He could only hope the rules would somehow work in his favor. Taking a deep breath, he reminded himself why he was there: his family's survival and his father's medical care. Once everyone was assembled, the rules were announced. The challenge was to cross the 1-kilometer lake. They were allowed to use anything at their disposal: muscle, stamina, experience, or intelligence. The first 3 to reach the opposite shore would advance to the final round. Sabotage and teamwork were strictly forbidden. At the count of 3, the race began. Almost every participant instantly dove into the water, swimming with all their might based on their physical experience, while guards stood by in case anyone drowned from exhaustion. However, one participant remained on the shore: Rayan. While the others swam frantically, he stood still, thinking deeply. "I can't possibly win if I just jump in and rely on raw strength," the lazy young man reasoned. Unexpectedly, he turned and ran away from the lake towards a small nearby woods. Moments later, he returned carrying a light, dry log and a small, flat piece of wood. He pushed the log into the water to use as a makeshift raft and used the flat stick as an oar. Rayan was the only one who realized this was a lake crossing challenge, not a swimming race. I may not have muscles or swimming experience, but I do have a bit of intelligence and a strong will, he thought as he paddled his raft. While the swimmers gradually slowed down from sheer exhaustion, Rayan steadily made his way across. Thankfully, he managed to finish in third place, becoming the final contestant to advance. The other two finalists were heavily muscled, highly trained men. After resting for the remainder of the day, the final round began the next morning on a massive grassy field. In front of each of the three finalists sat an identical, massive, and incredibly heavy wooden cube. The final rule was announced. They had to push their wooden block for 1 kilometer. Behind them lay a pile of various items: rope, scissors, gloves, wooden planks, chains, knives, and more. They were allowed to choose only one tool to help them, and they could not change it once chosen. They were reminded to think carefully and use their muscles, experience, or intelligence. For someone as lazy as Rayan, this physical task seemed impossible, but the thought of the chest of gold kept his spirit alive. The countdown finished, and the race began. The crowd roared with excitement. All three men rushed to the pile to find the perfect tool. The first muscular man, not wanting to waste a single second, grabbed a thick rope to drag his block. The second man, eager to keep pace, grabbed a sturdy wooden plank to use as a lever to inch his block forward. Rayan, however, stayed perfectly still. He carefully analyzed the items, pondering how each one could make moving the heavy block easier. 10 minutes passed. The first man, using his rope in sheer power, had dragged his block 50 meters. The second man was just 5 meters behind him. Rayan was still sitting in front of the tools, unmoving. He believed that spending time to choose the absolute best tool was far wiser than instantly engaging in a battle of brute strength he was sure to lose. 30 minutes passed. The two leaders were moving even faster now, having figured out the most efficient rhythm for their techniques. They were 200 meters ahead. Finally, Rayan made his choice. He picked up a knife. The audience and the judges were utterly baffled. How on earth was he going to move a massive wooden block with a small knife? But instead of trying to push the block, Rayan began to meticulously carve away the corners of the wooden cube. Luckily, although the wood was extremely heavy, it was quite easy to whittle. Slowly but surely, the crowd realized he wasn't just hacking at the wood aimlessly. Cheers erupted as the shape of the block transformed. It was no longer a cube. Rayan had carved it into a perfect sphere. He had spent 2 whole hours carving the wood, specifically reducing its weight to perfectly match his physical limits. Now he began to push. The crowd went wild as the heavy wooden ball rolled effortlessly across the grass. Pushing with every ounce of strength he had, Rayan raced to close the massive 600-meter gap between him and his opponents. "I just need to focus on pushing. There is no more time to think," he told himself. He pushed and pushed, ignoring where his rivals were. For the first time in his life, he was working incredibly hard, feeling the sting of sweat and the ache of true exhaustion. The desperate hope of saving his family fueled his fire, pushing him forward until he crossed the finish line in first place. The crowd and the officials erupted in joyous cheers. No one could have ever predicted that an ordinary, unathletic young man could defeat the strongest competitors in the land. A lazy man had used his intellect, followed by intense hard work, to claim victory. My friends, lazy people are very often quite intelligent and highly capable of doing great things. Their only real obstacle is their laziness. As we saw in this story, the key to overcoming that laziness and unlocking your true potential is finding a profound reason to work hard. You need a powerful reason, whether it is to save the family you love, or simply to prove wrong all the people who constantly belittle you. Find the biggest reason you can to fight harder than ever before. If this video helped inspire you, please don't forget to leave a like and a positive comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next story here on Scape.